deep in the lore. I remember you saying that it took a while for you to shake it.
It did, and I remember talking about, we were talking about music a minute ago, weren't we? That having sort of what is soundtracks or visuals, and I remember when I was preparing for that, every morning I would sit in the makeup chair listening to the soundtrack to Under the Skin by, gosh, what's the composer?
Mika
Levy.
Mika Levy, yeah.
And it would terrify me so much that when I stopped listening to the music, I could kind of still hear it in my ear, which is the whole point, because you know the cacophony on set, you need that sort of focus. But yeah, it's still frightening me today. But yeah, those kind of things do, like I've got the soundtrack to this going on in my head.
What's the soundtrack to this?
It's a little bit of Mika Levy and a bit of Max Richter as well, I think. But maybe we can afford to hire him. Who knows?
Mika Levy is amazing. Is everybody familiar with Under the Skin and that score?
Jackie as well. Did he do Jackie? I think.
She. I think Mika's.
Oh, sorry. She.
Yeah. I don't know. I just I wasn't as obsessive with with Jackie as I was Under the Skin. I saw Under the Skin 4 times in the theater, and Jackie I saw once at a screening. It's not good. It's not good. So can you like identify the division in your brain, your storyteller brain, between actor and writer, and what tools you used as an actor to write?
I think, obviously when you're acting, you're focusing on one character and you're preparing yourself to live inside the character, looking out at the world, which is lovely because you just get to pour all of your creative energy into one creation. As a writer, you have to take care of all of the characters, so you have to put yourself inside of, I had to put myself inside of Sarah, and inside of Daniel, and inside of Pavel, all of the characters, and then step outside of the world. But one of the things that I've always enjoyed about great writers and great screenwriters is when they prepare a character which is interesting and then stress test them because of the plot. So there is the concept of plot, and you know a lot of television writers can get obsessed with plot and forget really about character. And sometimes, as an actor on set, you'd be putting your hand up, going, "Can we just sort of, you know, calibrate the character within the plot? Because the plot's great, but if the character isn't being kind of broken by it, then I'm not as interested." So being inside and outside was quite useful, and again, that cinematic brain of seeing how long-form television develops from, you know, a first concept into, you know, multiple series and big story arcs, and seeing how they succeed and how they fail. Because I remember on my second season of Spooks in the UK, we had an idea for the show, but we started with 1 page of script, and I remember thinking, you've got to plan, you've got to get all of your hooks, all of the shape of the story in place before you start. So I couldn't fly by the seat of my pants writing this. I had to plot everything out. And also on a daily basis, seeing that call sheet, shooting out of order, having headlines of what was going to happen in a scene and what needed to you know, the little description of what was going to happen. That's how I wrote it, with chapters, headline and what needed to happen. So I guess those were my tools.
And did you write in order, or did you understand scenes that were tent poles of the story, flesh them out, and then go back? How did you approach the writing process?
I did write in order, but there were certain chapters that felt a bit like shoe leather that I needed to write them in order to get to the scenes that I really wanted to write. And I knew exactly what those scenes were, and I was sort of almost salivating over that process. And I did jump ahead at some point and just started crafting the really juicy moments. I mean, in a way, that's another thing I've picked up over the years as an actor, is that often you take a role because of one scene in an entire show, in an entire like 10 episodes. There's one scene that sells you on the role. Like, I cannot wait to play that scene. I don't know if I can play that scene. So there were chapters in this that I just couldn't wait to write.
Which ones?
The meeting between Terry Landau, the medical blogger, and Sarah, and of course the big denouement when Sarah finally finds out what's happening to her without spoiling it. Who's done it to her.
And when you were writing this, did you imagine it being adapted for television or movies, or was that a goal at all? Because it reads like a script. It reads cinematically, with more detail because it's a novel.
No, I mean, when I was writing it, it was only ever going to be an audiobook. There was no intention. I mean, maybe there was a little wish in the back of my mind, I would love for this to be printed. So when that came along, it was a delightful surprise. And then, of course, once you have a manuscript and that gets shopped around, and then producers like it and pick it up and option it, so that's happened. But yeah, at each step of the way, it's a bit of a, oh, you like it, you're gonna develop this. But you know, as I won't write the screenplay. I doubt. I've got there's far more brilliant people in the world that can do that.
Movie or TV?
Television. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think that's one of the things that I've loved about my work is that, you know, movies are the sort of holy grail, but having that length of time to piece character together, and I just love an end of episode hook, and I think I've sort of subliminally written end of episode hooks into
chapter hooks.
Yes, yeah, end of chapter. I get, which in a way is a kind of sonata form. Well, you know, you've got prologue and your sort of 3 acts and a coda, which sort of I think makes for a great 6 to 8 episodes television series.
And it feels like it's almost you've done your 10,000 hours of script reading and performing and working in television and film, that the cadence of those stories seems very clear. It feels like you've spent time in a writer's room.
I've sort of spent accidental time in some people's writers' room, not necessarily invited in, but actually working on some of the Netflix shows with Hartman Coben, watching how he gives over his own writing, and he's executive producing it, but he's also not very precious about the work. He loves the moment when someone comes in with a brand new idea and crafts this unexpected subplot, and he gets very excited about that. So I've really, he's been a bit of an unconscious mentor to me, and I've surreptitiously asked him questions that he's answered, not really realizing why I've asked it. But yeah, working on those 3 Netflix shows has been a real learning curve, and of course Hannibal.
One of the things that we see with shows that have to do with the pharmaceutical industry or any sort of technical industry around health, they're often played as the villains, and it feels like it's a low-hanging fruit to make the pharmaceutical companies the villains, and I don't feel like you're doing that.
Well, I guess I did conceive of the idea of Neurocell based on obviously Elon Musk's Neuralink, which at the time of writing was just a sort of distant blog. It's now in human trials. Also, Alzheimer's medication has suddenly taken a leap forward in the interim of writing this. But I think that a technology such as this will be developed for, you know, combating, you know, dementia. But you know that there will be a whole body of people out there desperate to get their hands on it for data collection and mind control. So, but I did like straddling that world of this is being financed for the greater good, but it could become a kind of Bond villain's tool.
Right. But you didn't do the Bond villain route, which I appreciated. It's more individual.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I did a little road trip to Switzerland just to sort of recce. This was after writing, actually. I did a little recce of, I wanted to make sure all of the journeys were correct, and I found the hotel that I was writing at, but I also found the site for the potential Schiller Institute, which I guess did have a sort of Bond-esque lair, but actually the guy that runs it, Maurice Schiller, his reason for developing the neural implant in the first place was because of an accident he'd had. So he is developing it for the right reasons rather than the nefarious reasons.
You know, as you're, you know, I mean, we are living in a kind of heightened paranoid world right now, and this does feel like it is prescient in many ways. Was there anything do you have a personal experience with Alzheimer's or dementia that has affected you, that made you want to write this story with Sarah?
You know, I did have a couple of friends, quite close friends, whose parents were going through this condition, and I didn't probe too much because I felt like it was too personal, but I do a lot of listening, and I picked up some anecdotes, and I felt like the human side of Alzheimer's was as interesting as the medical side of it. So I did do a bit of research into the medical stuff, but it was more the small anecdotes. Like there's a thing in this that I did alter it slightly, but a friend's parent had sort of tried to cook some food with which was still in a plastic Tupperware box, and had sort of placed it on the stove and then melted. And those little anecdotes that you pick up, and I just thought it's those things that just break your heart. And Sarah needed, or the reader, the listener needed to understand what Alzheimer's felt like to her, so that when she gets diagnosed, it's this sort of shattering of herself, because she knows what she's about to face. So it was the human side that I was most interested in.
And with her, and seeing what happened with her father, and then feeling that she's going down the same road.
Yes, and I think that dawning realization of nursing somebody with it and realizing this is going to happen to me, I think was crucial to sort of humanizing her as well, because you're already starting with, I mean, that's in the first 10 chapters, just this, she's kind of carrying a fracture inside of her already before she's even gotten into the story.
Well, it sets up the thriller aspect of it brilliantly, because she knows exactly how fallible her perception of events is, and it puts her down a road that we're rooting for her and can relate to her, but she is definitely on her own.
Yeah, and also it's quite a strong driving force to actually get her to Geneva, because she, at the back of her mind, she's thinking, if this neural implant is successful, maybe it will help my father. I mean, I don't think she directly makes that connection, but there is something in her that's like, I've got to do this for my husband and for everybody else experiencing this condition. So it gives her a bit more of a heroic quality as to why she goes.
She's a great hero and a great character.
I'm not finished with that.
Well, that was my next question, is where does the story go? You talked about cliffhangers.
You know, it's interesting because I got to the end of it and I thought, did I just write a central female character who was largely reactive because so much is happening to her? And I felt like I wanted to see her in a different story where she's much more the driving force. We just talked about that upstairs. Because, you know, I wanted to see her kind of own herself again. I don't want to spoil the story, but I can't, yeah, I'm not finished with Sarah. That's all I can say.
Have you started your next novel, or where are you at?
Yeah, I've started a second story, and I'm going the same route, which is an Audible original. It's a standalone story, actually. It's not a second Geneva. It's called The Cut, and it's about a crime trauma that happens to a group of children and how it distorts their journey into adulthood. And that's a little bit closer to home. It's all set in the Midlands in England. So, but if I did write a second, this would be the third one that Audible might let me write. We'll see.
Should we open it up for questions from folks?